Every morning, Cassandra woke up exhausted. Not the normal kind of tired that came from a late night or a particularly strenuous day, but bone-deep, soul-crushing exhaustion that felt like her entire body had been drained of every ounce of vitality. The kind of fatigue that made even the simple act of opening her eyes feel like climbing a mountain. The kind that settled into her bones and muscles and refused to leave no matter how much she slept or rested or tried to recover. She could go to bed at 8 p.m., which she often did because staying awake past that point felt impossible, and sleep for 12 hours straight without interruption, and still wake at 8 a.m. feeling like she hadn't rested at all, like she'd spent the entire night running marathons through hostile territory, like she'd been fighting battles or doing something intensely physical and demanding that drained every ounce of energy from her body and left her gasping for strength she no longer possessed. The exhaustion was relentless, constant, all-consuming in a way that had become her entire existence. She moved through her days in a fog of fatigue so thick it felt like swimming through honey. Simple tasks that other wolves accomplished, easily grocery shopping, cooking meals, attending pack meetings, felt monumentally difficult. By noon, she'd be struggling to keep her eyes open. By 3 p.m., she'd be counting down hours until she could ethically go back to bed without people commenting on how much she slept. By 6 p.m., she'd be barely coherent, her brain too foggy to hold conversations or process information or do anything beyond basic survival functions. "It's the curse," her pack healer Dr. Whitmore would say, with sympathetic eyes that looked genuine, but hid calculated deception during her monthly checkups that never actually helped anything. He'd review her symptoms, the exhaustion, the weight loss, the difficulty concentrating, the distance from her wolf, with apparent concern while knowing exactly what was causing every single one because he was orchestrating the harvesting himself. "Your particular manifestation of power is unfortunately draining in ways that other psychic abilities aren't. Dreamwalking always takes a toll on the dreamer because you're expending mental energy during what should be restorative sleep. It's a cruel irony, really. The time when you should be resting is when your power is most active, which means you never truly rest. There's no cure for this, no treatment that can reduce the fatigue or make dreamwalking less demanding on your system. You just have to manage it as best you can. Rest when you need to. Don't push yourself too hard during the day. Accept that this is how your life will be for as long as you have this ability. Maybe when you're older, if the power fades with age, you'll find some relief. But for now," he'd shake his head with false sympathy, "this is your reality." "I'm sorry." Cassandra had been hearing variations of this explanation since her powers first manifested at age 16. 8 years of being told that her ability to enter and influence dreams was a curse disguised as a gift. 8 years of waking, exhausted, struggling through days in a fog of fatigue, falling into bed early only to wake tired again. 8 years of missing pack events because she was too drained to participate. 8 years of watching other wolves live full, energetic lives while she barely had strength to make it through basic daily tasks. "You're so unlucky," her best friend Nadia would say with genuine sympathy. Having a rare power sounds cool until you realize it's destroying your quality of life. "I'd rather be powerless than exhausted all the time." And Cassandra agreed. She would have gladly given up the dream-walking ability if it meant feeling normal, feeling rested, feeling like a regular 24-year-old wolf instead of someone 3 times her age, carrying the weight of constant, unrelenting fatigue. The power felt more like punishment than gift, more like burden than blessing, more like curse than ability. Well, Cassandra didn't know what she couldn't possibly know, because everyone involved had worked meticulously and carefully to ensure she never discovered the truth, never questioned the official narrative, never looked too closely at symptoms that should have raised immediate red flags. Was that her exhaustion had absolutely nothing to do with dreamwalking being naturally draining? Dreamwalking, when done properly and without external interference, was actually quite easy for those born with the ability. It required minimal energy expenditure because entering and influencing dreams was a natural extension of the sleep state. not something that worked against the body's need for rest. Practiced properly, dream walking should leave the dreamer feeling refreshed and energized, not depleted and exhausted, because the ability flowed with sleep rather than fighting against it. No, Cassandra's exhaustion came from something else entirely. Something deliberate and systematic and absolutely criminal. From the fact that every single night for the past 8 years, while she slept deeply under the influence of medication, she genuinely believed was helping her achieve more. Restful sleep, but was actually keeping her unconscious and vulnerable to exploitation. Members of her own pack had been entering her room with specialized equipment designed specifically for psychic energy extraction. They'd been hooking her up to machines with wires that attached to her temples and chest, creating conduits through which dream energy could be channeled and captured. They'd been harvesting the dream energy she generated during sleep energy that should have remained hers. That should have sustained and refreshed her. That was part of her innate power and, draining it like vampires draining blood from an unconscious victim, taking what she created during those vulnerable sleeping hours and storing it carefully in crystal matrices that could preserve psychic energy indefinitely. Selling those filled crystals on the black market for enormous amounts of money to collectors who valued rare abilities, to researchers who wanted to study dream walking without the inconvenience of actually possessing the power themselves, to wolves willing to pay absolute fortunes for temporary access to dream walking abilities they hadn't been born with and would never naturally develop. She was a resource being exploited, a cash cow being milked, a battery being drained every night and told the exhaustion was normal, natural, just part of having the curse of powerful abilities, and she had no idea. This morning was like every other morning for the past 8 years. Cassandra's alarm went off at 8 a.m. and she reached over to silence it with a hand that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Her arm so heavy she could barely lift it the few inches required to tap the phone screen. Her entire body ached with a deep, persistent pain that had become so constant she barely registered it anymore. Like background noise that never stopped but became so familiar you learned to tune it out even though it was always there. Always present, always quietly destroying your quality of life. Her head throbbed with a dull, persistent headache that pulsed behind her eyes and made bright lights feel like knives stabbing into her brain. Her wolf was distant, barely present. Like even the animal part of her consciousness was too exhausted to fully manifest or respond to her attempts to connect with it. She dragged herself out of bed with monumental effort, each movement requiring conscious thought and deliberate force because her body wanted nothing more than to collapse back into unconsciousness. She caught sight of herself in the full-length mirror across the room and felt a jolt of dismay that had become routine. She looked terrible. Worse than terrible. She looked like someone wasting away from a terminal illness. Dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer or makeup could hide. She'd tried everything. Spent money she couldn't afford on expensive products that promised to reduce under-eye darkness, and nothing worked because the problem wasn't cosmetic. Her skin was too pale, almost translucent, with a grayish tinge that made her look like she was already halfway to being a corpse. Hair that used to be thick and glossy now hung limp and lifeless, the individual strands thin and brittle, breaking easily whenever she tried to brush it. She'd lost 15 pounds in the last 3 months without trying, without changing her diet or increasing exercise. Her body was consuming itself to compensate for energy that was being stolen every single night. Her clothes hung loose on her frame. Her face looked gaunt, cheekbones too prominent, eyes too large in a face that had lost its healthy roundness. "You need to eat more," Dr. Whitmore had told her at her last checkup just 3 days ago. Concern written across his features in an expression that looked genuine but was actually calculated performance, designed to maintain her trust while he continued exploiting her. "The dream walking is taking too much from you. You're burning calories in your sleep faster than you can replace them during waking hours. Your body is in a state of constant energy deficit. I'm prescribing a high-calorie supplement shake, 2,000 calories per bottle. Drink 2 a day on top of your regular meals. We need to keep your strength up, maintain your body weight, ensure you have enough energy reserves to handle the demands your power is placing on your system. Cassandra had dutifully bought the supplements from the PAC's approved supplier. Overpriced bottles that cost more than she could really afford on her limited income. Had dutifully consumed 2 shakes daily on top of regular meals. Forcing herself to drink the thick, chalky liquid even when her appetite was non-existent and the thought of food made her nauseous. Had seen absolutely no improvement in her weight or energy levels because the problem wasn't calorie intake or nutritional deficiency. It was having her literal life force drained systematically while she was unconscious and vulnerable, stolen by people she trusted to care for her health and well-being. She shuffled to the bathroom, turned on the shower, waited for the water to heat. While she waited, her eyes fell on the pill bottle on the counter. Sleep aid, take 1 nightly for restful sleep. She'd been taking them for 8 years on Dr. Whitmore's orders. Your brain is too active at night from the dream walking, he'd explained. These will help you achieve deeper, more restorative sleep. They're perfectly safe, non-addictive, just a gentle aid to help your body rest properly. Except they weren't sleep aids. They were sedatives strong enough to keep Cassandra completely unconscious for 8 to 10 hours, unable to wake even if someone was in her room. Touching her, connecting machinery to her temples and chest, draining power directly from her sleeping mind. The pills were the key to the entire operation. Without them, Cassandra might wake during the harvesting. Might discover what was being done to her. Might fight back, or tell someone, or demand it stop. So Dr. Whitmore prescribed them. The PAC leadership approved them. And Cassandra took them every single night. Trusting that the medical professional treating her fatigue was actually trying to help rather than being complicit in the very thing causing her symptoms. Cassandra showered, dressed in comfortable clothes because anything more fitted felt like too much effort, and made her way downstairs. Her parents were already gone, both worked early shifts at PAC headquarters. She was alone in the house. Alone with her exhaustion and her supposed curse, and the growing sense that something about her situation didn't add up, even though she couldn't articulate exactly what felt wrong. Like, why did dreamwalking drain her so much when the few other dreamwalkers she'd read about in historical texts seemed to live normal, energetic lives? Why did her fatigue seem to be getting progressively worse over the 8 years, instead of her body adapting to the power? Why did the sleep aids that were supposed to make her more rested leave her feeling even more drained? But every time she brought these questions to Dr. Whitmore, he had answers. Logical, reasonable answers that made her doubt her own observations and accept his expertise. Every dreamwalker is different. Your particular manifestation is more draining than historical cases. Your body hasn't adapted because the drain is too severe for adaptation to occur. The sleep aids help you rest deeper, but rest doesn't eliminate the fundamental drain that dreamwalking creates. And Cassandra would accept these explanations because what else could she do? Dr. Whitmore was a respected healer. Her PAC trusted him. Her parents trusted him. Questioning his medical judgment felt like paranoia, like making excuses for why she was weak when maybe she just needed to accept that this was her life now. She was making coffee something. She'd started drinking in desperate amounts, trying to combat the fatigue when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Is this Cassandra Blackwood? A woman's voice, professional and unfamiliar. Yes. Who's this? My name is Dr. Helena Kroos. I'm a researcher specializing in rare wolf abilities. I've been trying to reach you for 3 months. Your PAC leadership keeps blocking my calls, but I finally got your direct number from a mutual contact who's concerned about your well-being. Cassandra's exhausted brain struggled to process this. Why would PAC leadership block your calls? And what mutual contact? Because I've been investigating illegal dream energy harvesting operations and your name came up as a potential victim? The mutual contact is someone who used to work in your PAC's medical department and noticed discrepancies in your treatment records. They reached out to me anonymously because they suspected something wrong but were afraid to report it directly. Dream energy harvesting? I don't understand. I'm a dream walker, but I don't. My power is draining, not productive. There's nothing to harvest. That's what they've told you. Dr. Cross's voice was gentle but firm. But dreamwalking, when done naturally without interference, produces enormous amounts of psychic energy. That energy can be collected, stored, and sold. It's incredibly valuable on the black market. And based on the pattern of symptoms you've been exhibiting, the extreme fatigue, the progressive weakness, the weight loss, the distant wolf, I believe you've been having your dream. Energy harvested without your knowledge or consent for years. Cassandra sat down heavily at the kitchen table, coffee forgotten. That's insane. Who would do that? My pack? My healer? They're trying to help me manage the curse? What if it's not a curse? Dr. Krauss interrupted. What if the exhaustion isn't from dreamwalking itself but from having your energy stolen while you sleep? What if the sleep aids you're taking aren't helping you rest but keeping you unconscious during the harvesting? What if everything you've been told about your power being draining is a lie designed to keep you from questioning why you're always exhausted? Cassandra's mind was reeling. I don't know. That sounds like conspiracy theory. Like paranoid thinking, does it? Or does it explain things that haven't made sense? Have you ever questioned why you're so much more drained than other dreamwalkers in historical records? Why your symptoms keep getting worse instead of better? Why you started sleeping pills at the exact same time your fatigue became severe? Cassandra thought about it. Thought about 8 years of questions she'd pushed aside, because trusting medical authority seemed more reasonable than suspecting systematic exploitation. Thought about how many times she'd wondered if something was wrong but had been talked out of those instincts. What do you want me to do? Her voice came out small, uncertain. I want you to stop taking the sleep aids. Just for one night. See what happens? See if you wake up feeling different? See if you notice anything unusual during the night. Dr. Krauss paused. And I want you to do it tonight, before they realize I've contacted you and increase security. Can you do that? Can you skip the pills just once and see what happens? Every instinct Cassandra had developed over 8 years of trusting Dr. Whitmore screamed at her to say no, to dismiss this stranger's wild claims, to take her medication like a good patient and accept that her life was just difficult because of a cursed power. But something else, something deeper, something that had been quietly questioning for years, whispered that maybe this was the explanation she'd been searching for. Maybe her instincts that something was wrong had been right all along. Maybe she wasn't cursed. Maybe she was being exploited. Okay, she said quietly. I'll skip the pills tonight. I'll see what happens. That night, Cassandra went through her normal routine. Ate dinner with her parents, who asked their usual concerned questions about how she was feeling. Told them she was fine, just tired. Same as always. Went upstairs at her usual early bedtime because exhaustion made staying awake past 9 p.m. nearly impossible. Changed into pajamas, brushed her teeth, looked at the pill bottle on her bathroom counter. Take one nightly for restful sleep. She picked up the bottle, opened it, shook one pill into her palm like she'd done every night for 8 years. And then, heart pounding with anxiety about defying medical orders, she put the pill back in the bottle instead of swallowing it. Cassandra got into bed without the sedative, turned off the lights, closed her eyes, and waited for sleep to come naturally instead of being chemically induced. It took longer than usual. Her body was used to the pills, used to being knocked unconscious within 20 minutes of taking them. Without that chemical assistance, her mind wandered restlessly. She thought about Dr. Cross's claims, about dream energy harvesting, about the possibility that her entire understanding of her power was wrong. Eventually, exhaustion won, and she drifted into sleep. Not the deep, unconscious sleep the pills created, but lighter sleep. The kind where you're aware of your surroundings, even while dreaming. The kind where unusual sounds or movements might wake you. Which is why, at approximately 2 a.m., Cassandra woke to the sound of her bedroom door opening. She kept her breathing steady, her body still, her eyes closed. Pretended to be asleep while her heart raced and her newly alert mind tried to process what was happening. Footsteps crossed her room. Multiple people. At least 3, maybe 4. Moving with practiced quiet like they'd done this many times before. "She's under," a voice whispered. Dr. Whitmore's voice. "Vitals are steady. We can proceed." Cassandra felt hands touching, her positioning her arms, adjusting her head, placing something cold against her temples. She forced herself not to react, not to flinch, not to give away that she was conscious and aware. "Dream energy levels are excellent tonight," another voice said. "Female? Unfamiliar. Should be able to extract at least 3 full vials. The buyer is offering premium rates for high-quality dream essence right now. This is going to be profitable." "How long has this operation been running now?" a third voice asked. Younger, less certain. 8 years of harvesting from the same source. Isn't that dangerous? Doesn't prolonged extraction cause permanent damage? Who cares? Dr. Whitmore's voice was cold, clinical. "She'll never know. She thinks her exhaustion is from dreamwalking, being naturally draining. As long as we keep her medicated and convinced her power is a curse, she'll never question why she's tired. We can harvest for another 8 years easily. Maybe longer if we're careful about not depleting her too severely. But the weight loss, the increasing fatigue, she's deteriorating, so we adjust the extraction rate. Take a little less per session. Keep her functional enough to keep producing, but weak enough that she never develops the strength to question her situation. It's simple resource management. She's a renewable energy source as long as we don't kill her." Cassandra felt something attached to her temples. Felt a pulling sensation deep in her mind, like something was being drawn out of her consciousness. Felt her dream energy. The power she'd thought was a curse, being actively harvested by machines while she lay helpless in her own bed. Violated by people she'd trusted to care for her health. The rage that filled her was unlike anything she'd ever experienced. Not the hot, explosive kind that led to reckless action, but cold, calculating fury that gave her absolute clarity about what needed to happen next. She waited. Let them finish the harvesting session. Let them disconnect the machines and quietly leave her room, confident she was still unconscious and unaware. Let them think their operation was secure and undiscovered. And then, once they were gone and her door was closed, Cassandra sat up in bed and called Dr. Cross back. "They were here," she said without preamble when the researcher answered. "You were right. Dr. Whitmore and at least 2 others. They harvested my dream energy while I was supposed to be asleep. They have machines. They've been doing this for 8 years. They were talking about selling what they took and how to keep extracting without killing me. Can you get out of the house safely?" Dr. Cross's voice was urgent. "Right now. Before they realize you were awake. Before they know you're aware." "Yes. My parents are asleep. The harvester's already left. I can leave. Pack a bag. Take anything essential. Meet me at the address I'm about to text you. We're going to the council with this. We're going to expose the entire operation. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe, where they can't drug you or silence you or convince you to doubt what you experienced." Cassandra moved quickly and quietly. Threw clothes and essentials into a backpack, grabbed her laptop, her phone, the bottle of sleep aids as evidence, slipped out of her house through the back door, shifted into her wolf form, surprised at how much easier it was than usual, how much more present her wolf felt without the sedatives in her system and ran. The address Dr. Krause provided was a safe house on neutral territory, outside Packlands. Cassandra made it there just before dawn, shifted back to human form, and was met by Dr. Krause, herself a woman, in her 50s, with kind eyes and the determined expression of someone who'd been fighting this battle for years. "You're safe now," Dr. Cross said, ushering her inside. "And we're going to make sure everyone knows what was done to you. Every pack that participated, every person who printed, every authority who looked the other way. This operation ends today." The investigation took 2 weeks. Dr. Cross had been building a case against illegal dream energy harvesting for 5 years. But she'd never had a victim willing to testify or evidence solid enough to force the council to act. Cassandra provided both. She described in detail what she'd witnessed: a harvesting session, the conversation between Dr. Whitmore and the others, the machines they'd used, the timeline of her 8 years of exploitation. She provided the sleep aid pills, which tested positive for powerful sedatives far stronger than any legitimate sleep medication. She submitted to medical examinations that showed clear evidence of prolonged psychic energy depletion, consistent with systematic harvesting. And when Dr. Cross searched Cassandra's home with council authorization, they found everything. The harvesting equipment hidden in her parents' basement, the stored dream energy in crystal matrices, hundreds of vials representing 8 years of theft, financial records showing massive payments from black market buyers, communications between Dr. Whitmore, PAC leadership, and the criminal network purchasing stolen dream energy. It wasn't just Cassandra's PAC. The operation had branches in 7 different territories. 12 dreamwalkers total had been systematically harvested. All of them told their exhaustion was normal. All of them medicated to keep them unconscious and compliant. All of them exploited for years while believing their power was a curse, instead of recognizing they were being robbed. The trials were public and extensive. Dr. Whitmore was stripped of his medical license and sentenced to 20 years imprisonment. Cassandra's parents, who had been active participants in the harvesting, allowing it to happen in their own home to their own daughter in exchange for a share of the profits, were exiled from all PAC territories permanently. PAC leadership faced similar charges, along with conspiracy, trafficking, and systematic abuse of PAC members. How could they do this? Cassandra asked Dr. Cross during one of their many conversations as the trials unfolded. "My own parents. The healer I trusted. The PAC that was supposed to protect me. How could they exploit me for 8 years and never feel guilty enough to stop? Because they convinced themselves it was justified. That you were providing a valuable resource. That the money was worth the harm. That you'd never know, so it didn't really matter." Dr. Cross's voice was sad but firm. People are very good at justifying exploitation when it benefits them, very good at redefining victims as resources and theft as utilization. I thought I was cursed. I spent 8 years hating my own power, wishing I could be rid of it, believing I was fundamentally broken. Cassandra's voice shook. And the whole time, my power was fine. I was fine. They were just stealing from me and calling it a curse so I wouldn't fight back. That's what abusers do. They convince you the problem is you, not them. They make you doubt your own reality. They turn your strengths into weaknesses so you never realize you could resist. Dr. Cross took Cassandra's hand. But you did realize. You questioned. You trusted your instincts when I called. You took the risk of skipping medication to find out the truth. That takes incredible courage. 6 months after the trials, Cassandra stood in front of a support group for dreamwalkers who'd been harvested. 12 wolves who had spent years believing their power was cursed, who'd lived with exhaustion they'd been told was normal, who'd trusted healers and PACs that had betrayed them systematically. For 8 years I thought my power was a curse, Cassandra told them. I thought dreamwalking naturally drained me. I thought the exhaustion, the weakness, the constant fatigue, I thought that was just how my life would always be. Something I had to accept and manage and live with. But it wasn't the power, a young male said quietly. He'd been harvested for 3 years before the operation was exposed. It was them, taking what we created, selling it, profiting while we suffered. Exactly. Our power isn't a curse. It's a gift. A rare, valuable gift that people wanted so badly they were willing to steal it from us while we slept. Cassandra met each wolf's eyes. We spent years hating ourselves for being weak when we were actually being exploited. Hating our abilities when our abilities were fine. The problem was never us. It was them. How do we trust anyone again? A female asked. She'd been harvested for 10 years. A decade of her life stolen. How do we know who's actually helping versus who's just waiting for another opportunity to use us? We trust carefully. We question when things don't make sense. We listen to our instincts instead of dismissing them because authority figures tell us to. Cassandra's voice was firm. And we build support systems with people who've been through this, who understand what it's like to be told your reality is wrong when you're actually perceiving abuse correctly. 1 year after discovering the truth, Cassandra woke up feeling rested for the first time in 8 years. Actually, genuinely rested. No exhaustion. No fog. No distance from her wolf. Just normal, healthy wakefulness after a full night of natural sleep. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. The dark circles were gone. Her skin had color again. Her hair was shiny and thick. She'd gained back the weight she'd lost, plus a bit more. Her body finally able to properly process food without having energy constantly drained. Her wolf was present and strong, no longer suppressed by sedatives and depletion. This was who she actually was. This was what she looked like, without systematic exploitation draining her life force every night. This was the person she'd been before Dr. Whitmore and her pack had decided. She was more valuable as a resource than as a wolf with rights and autonomy. "How does it feel?" Dr. Cross asked during their weekly check-in call. She'd become not just a researcher who'd saved Cassandra, but a mentor and friend who understood what recovery from this kind of violation looked like. Strange, good. Like I'm meeting myself for the first time. Cassandra smiled at her reflection. I keep expecting to feel exhausted. Keep waiting for the fatigue to hit. But it doesn't. Because there's nothing draining me anymore. This is just normal. This is how I'm supposed to feel. And the dreaming walking. How's that developing now that you can practice it properly? It's incredible. It doesn't drain me at all. It's actually energizing in a way I never experienced before. Like the power flows naturally, instead of being forcibly extracted. Cassandra's voice held wonder. I've been helping other dreamwalkers learn to use their abilities properly. Teaching them what it should feel like when it's not being harvested. Showing them their power is a gift, not a curse. You're doing important work, turning your exploitation into education, helping others avoid what happened to you. It's the only way I know to make meaning from it. To take something horrible and transform it into something that protects others? Cassandra paused. I also want to hunt down other illegal harvesting operations. Use my dream walking to identify victims who don't know they're being exploited yet. Get them help before they spend 8 years believing they're cursed. That's dangerous work. So is letting people suffer because no one's willing to risk exposing their abusers. Cassandra's voice was determined. I survived 8 years of harvesting. I'm not going to let others suffer the same fate just because investigating is risky. They deserve to know the truth. Deserve to reclaim their power. Deserve to wake up rested instead of drained. 5 years after the exposure, Cassandra had identified and helped shut down 17 additional illegal harvesting operations across multiple territories. She'd helped rescue 43 dreamwalkers from systematic exploitation. She'd testified at numerous trials, trained council investigators on how to recognize harvesting operations, and become the leading expert on dream energy theft and recovery. She'd also fully developed her dream-walking abilities to levels that would have been impossible while being drained. She could enter multiple dreams simultaneously, could influence dream content from a distance, could detect other dreamwalkers, and protect vulnerable dreamers from invasive psychic attacks. Her power, freed from suppression and exploitation, had flourished into something extraordinary. Do you still think about them? A journalist asked during an interview for a documentary about illegal ability harvesting. The people who exploited you? Your parents? Dr. Whitmore? The pack leadership? Do you think about them? Sometimes, less as time passes. They don't define me anymore. Cassandra's voice was thoughtful. They stole 8 years. Made me believe I was cursed when I was gifted. Convinced me my power was the problem when they were the problem. But they didn't break me. They didn't permanently damage my abilities. They didn't succeed in keeping me weak and exploitable forever. What do you want people to take away from your story? That if something feels wrong, if your body is telling you something's not right, if your instincts are screaming that you're being harmed even though authority figures are telling you it's normal, trust yourself. Question. Investigate. Don't let people convince you that your suffering is inevitable or that your power is a curse when it might actually be a gift someone's stealing. And to the people currently being harvested who don't know it yet, pay attention to your body. If you're constantly exhausted despite sleeping well, if you're taking medication that's supposed to help but makes things worse, if your abilities feel draining when they shouldn't, if people benefit from you being weak and depleted, question it, challenge it. Seek second opinions from sources outside your pack. Because what you think is a curse might actually be exploitation. And you deserve better than being harvested while you sleep. 10 years after discovering the truth, Cassandra stood at a council summit presenting new legislation to protect dreamwalkers and other rare ability wolves from harvesting operations. The laws she'd helped draft made it illegal to harvest any wolf's innate energy without explicit informed consent, created mandatory independent medical reviews for wolves exhibiting chronic fatigue or depletion symptoms, established protected channels for reporting suspected harvesting without fear of pack retaliation. For 8 years I believed my power was a curse, she told the assembled alphas and council members. I believed the exhaustion, the weakness, the constant drain was just how dreamwalking worked. And everyone reinforced that belief because it served them. Because as long as I thought I was cursed, I wouldn't question why I was actually being systematically harvested for profit. But power isn't a curse. Ability isn't a burden. Being rare isn't being defective. I was gifted with dreamwalking, and people who should have protected me instead exploited me. This legislation ensures that what happened to me, what happened to hundreds of wolves across territories, can never happen again. The legislation passed unanimously. And as Cassandra left the summit, she felt her wolf sing with satisfaction. They'd done it. They'd turned 8 years of exploitation into protection for future generations. They'd reclaimed their power and used it to shield others. She thought her power was a curse, but it was a gift. And now, finally, she could use it the way it was always meant to be used, freely, powerfully, and in service of protecting wolves who couldn't yet protect themselves. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts. And if you'd like to support me, please subscribe. It's free and it helps more people help hear these stories.